până la 12 ani, numai cu acordul sau împreună cu părinții ori familia.
This is a CNBC original.
When we first launched, we were hoping for, maybe 400, 500 people. Harvard didn't have a Facebook, so that's the gap that we were trying to fill. And now we're at 100,000 people, so who knows where we're going next.
With over 500 million users across the world, there are more people on Facebook than the entire U.S. population.
This is part of our mainstream life now, so it's normal. Even my grandmother is on Facebook.
Facebook has taken hold in almost every aspect of everyday life, for better, for worse, in ways many people are unaware of. It's being used by police to find criminals.
The description of the woman that led you here.
Yes.
All thanks to Facebook.
Yes.
And ordinary people to search for loved ones. Behind it all, the Harvard dropout, Facebook's creator, billionaire Mark Zuckerberg.
We all got in a room and we kind of hunkered down for a couple of weeks and we said, this is what people want.
Along the way to the top, Zuckerberg's made plenty of friends.
We launched Facebook at the beginning of the semester, and we knew that we had hit some nerve.
As well as foes.
There was a very orchestrated and premeditated effort on his part to mislead us.
He's also created controversy.
Mark Zuckerberg is the CEO of the most important social networking company in history, which has a gigantic amount of information about people's lives.
And we don't have a clear idea of what Facebook will ultimately do with this data.
Facebook is trying to play a role that we can legitimately ask, should any one company play? They are trying to be the identity registry for the world.
Can one idea, one visionary, and one company change the world? I'm Lester Holt with the real story behind the Facebook obsession. Our story of one of the most audacious, successful enterprises on planet Earth begins not with its founder, Time Magazine's Person of the Year, or in a Harvard dorm room, but in Middle America, in Youngstown, Ohio, home to one of Facebook's 500 million users.
I was looking for someone that looks like me, someone that acts like me, someone that has my genes.
On a sweltering July day, Carrie Triddle prepares for a journey she has waited a lifetime for.
Am I missing anything?
Bob and Dee Triddle, the only parents Carrie has known since birth, have come to join her on a road trip that will take them over 1,000 miles and 6 states. Carrie's quest to meet her biological parents had been fraught with dead ends.
Do you remember the age in which you started thinking that, gee, it would be interesting to find my birth parents?
Always.
You wanted to fill in some blanks.
Right.
In your life.
Mm-hmm.
It took a few years for the 21-year-old Youngstown State English major and summertime lifeguard to muster up the courage to search for her birth mother. After 4 months without a lead,
I turned to Facebook because everybody has Facebook. So I typed in her name, Jennifer Culp. Nothing came up. I was finally like, duh, why don't I just make a group saying that I'm looking for this woman and invite everybody on my friend list?
In about a month, Carrie's Facebook page had attracted attention way beyond her friends. Over 1,500 people from all over the country joined on, including a single mother who lived nearly 4,000 miles away in Anchorage, Alaska.
Somebody you'd never met before, never communicated with?
Never. I had no idea who this woman was.
The woman, 39-year-old Shelley Rodenbach, was a child care worker with a rather unusual hobby: uniting children with their birth families. It occurred to Shelley that Facebook could be the perfect venue for her amateur avocation.
I just put in biological mother, and Carrie's page came back on that search, so I just started taking the information that she had with description and a maiden name and started doing some searches, and I got some leads really quickly.
Building and adding strands of information from a few people's search sites.
I would check it against Facebook, see if anything matches there.
By the next morning, in less than 24 hours, Shelley found Carrie's birth mother on Facebook.
You could see the resemblance from the pictures that Carrie was given. I was like, this has to be her.
The woman Carrie had been wondering about her entire life was living in Aberdeen, South Dakota, working the day shift at a truck stop restaurant.
Like Little Splash?
Jennifer Kolb, who now went by the name Jennifer Reeder, was a divorced 37-year-old waitress.
What can I get for you?
Who had never given up hope she would someday see her child again.
All right, sounds good.
I was very excited. I couldn't wait. I had to message Carrie right away.
And she said, hey, I think I just found her on Facebook. So she sent me the link to her Facebook.
Did you look at it and say,
yes,
yeah, there's a resemblance there?
Yes. Her face was exactly the face in the picture that I had. So I said, oh my gosh, this is really her.
Carrie sent Jen a request to be her Facebook friend without revealing she was her daughter.
She added me for maybe 2 hours, and then she deleted me. And I thought it was because she realized that I was her biological daughter and she didn't want anything to do with me.
But Jen had no idea who her new friend was.
Because her birth name was Samantha Jo. And that makes me feel bad, you know, not recognizing my own child. I was 16 when I gave her up for adoption. She was 2 months old when I last saw her. I'm sorry to be emotional.
I needed her to either reject me or accept me. She couldn't just do it by deleting me on Facebook.
Carrie had a friend call Jen to reveal the truth behind the Facebook facade.
I was just caught by surprise and overwhelmed and just really happy. I always wondered what she was doing, what she looked like, how her life was, who her parents were, where she was living. You know, all those questions go through a mother's mind.
Tell me about that first conversation you two had on the phone.
Well, Jen cried, and I was just all smiles. I couldn't stop smiling. It was so great to hear her voice for the first time.
Like I found a long-lost friend.
It was our second phone call. I called her and I said, what are you doing July 27th?
Carrie, it's 5 o'clock. Time to get up.
We're about to leave on this road trip from Ohio to South Dakota. It's still really surreal. I never thought that this would actually happen. I never thought that Facebook would take me to meet my biological mother. I suggested Aberdeen, so I figured we'll just drive out there and make a road trip out of it. We'll probably drive 12 to 13 hours the first day and then finish it up with 7 hours the second day. So it's going to be like about 20 hours. I'm really excited to meet Jen this morning.
How many times have you played over this scene in your mind as to what it's going to be like?
So many times. I don't even know how I'm going to react.
Yeah, it's finally here. Oh my gosh. Rushing around, getting ready. Anxiety, anxious, and excited.
We decided to meet at Wiley Park because we thought it'd be cool to meet under the rainbow.
There's the rainbow! I don't know if I can stand here and wait, though, as she's walking towards me. I'd want to run to her.
Oh, we are following the yellow brick road.
Here she comes, here she comes.
Do you want me to run?
Yes!
Hi.
Oh my God. Let me see your eyes.
I wasn't gonna cry.
Yeah. So good to see you.
We have so many freckles.
I know.
I get them there too.
See. Yeah. All right. So, do you want to meet my family?
Yeah, I do.
And I would like to meet yours too.
I mean, what an incredible journey this has been for you. How would you describe this whole process?
To meet my mom. It's really indescribable. It's the biggest amount of emotion that you can ever imagine. We're finally together. It's just unbelievable that I was able to go through Facebook, through Shelley, to be able to get here in Aberdeen, South Dakota to meet Jen.
It was everything and more, and I'm just happy that I finally got to meet her, and she'll be my best friend till the day I die.
A reunion made possible by an internet sensation whose story has its own dramatic twists and turns. Harvard and Hollywood, fact and fiction, when the Facebook obsession returns.
Right here, can you look at us? Right here.
This movie's about friendship and betrayal and greed and money and power.
Brenda, right here, please.
Frenzied excitement at the New York debut of the much-anticipated The Social Network, a movie touted as capturing the moment at which Facebook was invented, the most revolutionary social phenomenon of the new century.
All this talk about Facebook.
The well-oiled Hollywood promotion machine was out in full force.
There's a big theme of ambition, a kind of American success story.
He was really onto something because, 500 million other people use it.
But the real-life star of Facebook, its 26-year-old creator, Mark Zuckerberg, was promoting his own agenda that day.
I've committed to starting the Startup Education Foundation, whose first project will be a $100 million challenge grant.
$100 million?
$100 million.
Some people undoubtedly are going to be criticizing the timing of Mark's announcement because we know that there is an unauthorized movie that's coming out about Mark and Facebook. So what did you want to say about that?
Oh, well, it's a movie. It's fun. Yeah. It's a lot of it is fiction, but even the filmmakers will say that. They're trying to build a good story.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd invented Facebook. This is our time.
Your best friend is suing you for $600 million.
It's a story of sex and drugs with a little rock and roll. It's not the story of what happened when we founded Facebook.
Chris Hughes first met Mark Zuckerberg their freshman year at Harvard in 2002.
He was a bit of a recluse, spending a lot of his time coding, but the faster you got to know him, the easier you got to understand that he was actually quite interested in the way people were interacting both at school and in general.
By the fall of 2003, Hughes, Zuckerberg, and Dustin Moskovitz were roommates living in the dorm where Facebook's predecessor was created.
Something called Face Mash, where Mark was able to collect all of the Harvard photographs in the Facebooks of all of these undergraduate houses, put them in a single database, and then in a typically mature way, put one person by another, and you could decide which was the more attractive.
It would be the first, but certainly not the last time Zuckerberg's controversial methods would lead to trouble. Accused of hacking into Harvard's computer network to access the photos, he faced several university charges, including breach of security and privacy violations. The charges were eventually dropped, and a few months later, on February 12, 2004, the Facebook was born.
We figured that if we can make a site that would help people communicate with their friends, their real friends, more easily, then this could be a great service for people.
It was an instant hit, but not everyone was cheering its growing success.
Very, very quickly, he opened up to other schools, as we told him in our conversations to do.
It was such a shock and just an utter betrayal.
Then Harvard seniors Divya Narendra, Tyler, and Cameron Winklevoss watched the Facebook craze with horrified disbelief. They accused Zuckerberg of stealing their social network idea by pretending to work on their site, the Harvard Connection.
Our initial meeting was in the dining hall of Kirkland House.
We gave him the logins to our servers, which had all of our existing source code, the Harvard Connection site that was built to that point. We shared our ideas.
We had a lot of email discourse back and forth, and in total about 52 email exchanges and 3 meetings in person.
We were all excited, and we could tell he was too.
And then something changed along the way.
It was sort of just a string of excuses and what became false promises. The work's almost done, or I'd like to show you this, but I left my laptop cord somewhere. Once he launched the product, it became very clear that he had perpetrated a fraud on us for well over 2 months.
The classmates sued Zuckerberg and Facebook, which later agreed to a $65 million settlement. But back in 2004, Zuckerberg remained steadfastly focused on Facebook. Just 2 months after his dorm room launch, the Harvard sophomore, all of 19 years old, made his national TV debut when he introduced Facebook on CNBC.
You sign on, you make a profile about yourself by answering some questions, entering some information such as your interests, what books you like, movies, and most importantly, who your friends are.
Mark, if somebody was to put the question to you about the magnitude of what you think you've launched, how big do you think your product or your service is?
Well, it's impossible to tell. When we first launched, we were hoping for, maybe 400, 500 people. Now we're at 100,000 people, so who knows where we're going next.
That summer, Zuckerberg, Hughes, and Moskowitz landed in Palo Alto, California, the heart of the Silicon Valley, armed with over $10,000 of capital from Harvard classmate and business partner Eduardo Severin. Soon after they arrived, they connected with Sean Parker, the co-founder of the music file sharing service Napster.
$1 million isn't cool. You know what's cool? $1 billion.
Parker, portrayed in The Social Network by Justin Timberlake,
I founded Napster,
became Facebook's first president. Their home office was a 4-bedroom sublet.
It was run like a frat house. It was like kids sleeping 2 or 3 to a room, basically just like mattresses on the floor, everybody kind of crashing everywhere.
But during that crazy summer, a lot of serious work was getting done.
We're all seated around a dining room table, and everybody is just either coding or talking, coming up with ideas.
Ideas that captured the imagination of new and old media. Escalating offers to buy Facebook came in from Friendster, Viacom, Yahoo, and Microsoft. Zuckerberg said no thanks to them all. David Kirkpatrick, author of The Facebook Effect, has been writing about Facebook since its earliest days.
Why hasn't Zuckerberg sold?
He's happy to get rich, let's be real, but he absolutely has created Facebook from the beginning and still manages it to change the world more than to make money.
Facebook has received hundreds of millions from investors. In early 2011, it was reported that Facebook secured $500 million from Goldman Sachs and a Russian company. But Zuckerberg remains firmly in control.
No, we're not adding it to the registration page.
Everyone else does it. Why are you so...
Because we are a site that needs to allow people to register as quickly as possible.
From Facebook's earliest days, no detail was too small for its creators' radar.
What is the URL for the blog?
The blog is blog.php.
It should be blog.facebook.com.
We can do it.
And we find that 60% or 2/3 of people are coming back to the site every day. The reason why they're doing that is because this is a utility that people can use to understand their world. The only other things that people use that much are things like email or instant messaging.
One of the key insights of Facebook was to focus on social networking as a utility rather than social networking as a sort of entertainment.
Jeff Hammerbacher built and led Facebook's data team until he left in late 2008.
It wasn't the kind of culture where it was a good idea to say, hi, I have an idea. It was a kind of culture where it was a good idea to build a prototype of your idea and then show people. So we had these things called hackathons. Everybody would stay up all night in the office and work on something. And actually at one single hackathon, both Facebook Chat and Facebook Video were built as just prototypes.
The news feed was a particularly important evolution in Facebook. It shouldn't be up to you as a user to proactively type in your friend's name, go and search, see what she's doing. Instead, that information should come to you. I can remember Mark's sketches for the initial product. There's mock-ups, there's team meetings, everything is on the table. Icons will be changed one day, the formats of the feed will be changed the next.
Facebook is now valued at an estimated $50 billion. With 1 million new users every week, it has surpassed Google as the most popular website in the U.S.
I just think that it all starts with building a product that people love. One of the things that's crazy is we still have more than 50% of people who are on Facebook using it every day.
Just this past summer, reaching the 500 million mark is monumental. It means that 1 out of every 12 people in the world is on Facebook.
But as Facebook grows, so do concerns over privacy.
I was in tears and saying, I think I've just totally messed up my life.
A free service that may come with a cost. Next on the Facebook Obsession.
Lupta pentru drepturile femeilor este purtată mai acerb ca niciodată. Acum intervievăm în exclusivitate 3 foste doamne secretari de stat. Întrebăm dacă aceste femei au făcut vreo diferență.
Drepturile femeii sunt drepturile omului. Hillary Clinton, 1995. Ce s-a schimbat de atunci? Drepturile femeilor. Luni la 20 pe DigiLive. Despre tine.
I was in shock in realizing that I had just lost my job. I regret my stupidity. I really do. I made a major faux pas, and this is something that I will live with for the rest of my life.
June Talvidi-Seipel still has trouble comprehending the devastation that has descended upon her life. Her 30-year career in education may now be over, and she is dipping into her retirement savings to pay her expenses.
Because of Facebook. Yeah, because of Facebook.
The 56-year-old teacher is probably the last person one would imagine getting into trouble on Facebook. The married mother of one has a PhD in education and for the last year was heading up the technology program at a Massachusetts high school.
I came home and I was just very frustrated, thinking I was talking to family and friends. Unfortunately, I did it on Facebook.
Seipel vented her work frustrations in a torrent of angry words on what she thought was her private Facebook page.
At one point, I've been sick for 6-8 weeks, so I made a joke about kids being germ bags, and, you know, I remember now why I got out of teaching. And apparently some parents, I don't know how they found it, but they found it.
Soon after, she was asked to resign.
I was devastated. I had no idea. Oh, my God. This can't be happening to me. I was in tears and saying, I think I've just totally messed up my life. How could this happen?
Seipel believed her privacy settings allowed just her friends to read her postings.
Never occurred to me that Facebook had done some changes to their privacy policies and defaulted everybody to being basically open. Just blows me away. I was angry that Facebook seems to think that they have the right to not honor your settings, that they can just change them.
There has been anger over Facebook's ever-evolving privacy changes from its earliest days.
Facebook has dealt with privacy in a manipulative way.
Chris Hufnagel heads the privacy programs at UC Berkeley.
They will introduce a new product. Invariably, it makes people's profiles more public. And then once there is some public objection, they draw back a little bit, but not much. They're still opening up people's profiles to the world.
Thank you, and welcome to F8. What we have to show you today will be the most transformative thing we've ever done for the web.
In April of 2010, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg added fuel to the privacy controversy when he unveiled the Open Graph at the company's annual conference.
I am friends with you. I am attending this event. I like this band. These connections aren't just happening on Facebook. They're happening all over the web. And today, with the Open Graph, we're going to bring all of these together.
The Open Graph lets Facebook users share their favorite clothing brands, music, and more with their friends by clicking like buttons on participating websites. The ultimate goal, goods and services immediately tailored to your interests, even if you're logging onto the website for the first time. A great convenience for some, but for others, an alarming intrusion. A firestorm of negative publicity and outrage ensued over the privacy implications.
These things used to be private. These things are now public.
Alana Joy, a media marketing strategist based in Los Angeles, was the force behind the Facebook protest page.
We all assume that we have certain rights, that our personal information belongs to us. And Facebook is going to go mess it up by turning around and behind our backs, really, inching their way towards exploiting every single user that has trusted them. That is not okay.
The protest plan was simple and peaceful. Log off from Facebook for one day. Joy believed asking others to permanently quit the Facebook habit could be just too much to ask. She, however, was ready to leave for good. But Facebook makes breaking up hard to do. Each photograph, in Joy's case over 500 of them, had to be deleted one by one.
This is ridiculous. I think pretty much anyone else would have, stopped at this point. I'm getting a callus.
Are you sure you want to deactivate your account? Your 530 friends will no longer be able to keep in touch with you. Bo will miss me. Well, I don't know who that is.
After 2.5 frustrating hours, mission finally accomplished. Joy's protest, ironically, demonstrated the power of Facebook, with over 6,000 people signing on.
All right, guys, this is it.
That was easy.
Including 52-year-old Patrick Barbanes of Coral Springs, Florida. He spent the day with his family, Facebook free.
What I hope to achieve by participating in the protest is simply to be part of the noise that gets back to the CEO of Facebook, to let him and the company know that they perhaps have taken a wrong direction in terms of privacy and the way that they're treating people.
We wanted to talk with Mark Zuckerberg about privacy and other issues, but our request was declined. We were directed to Facebook's privacy page, which openly acknowledges that the company keeps track of users' actions, including creating photo albums, sending gifts, or attending events.
They have user-identified data on 500 million people. That is unprecedented.
The Facebook Effect author, David Kirkpatrick, spent several months inside the company.
Facebook knows who you are. They also have a lot of observation they can apply in addition to the data that you volunteer to them. So they can watch you inside Facebook and to some extent outside Facebook and get more data about you even than you've told them.
That meticulous tracking of users' online behavior was headed by Jeff Hammerbacher, who later founded Cloudera, a software company in Palo Alto. Hammerbacher built and led Facebook's data team from 2006 to 2008.
It wasn't really until we started watching each page view that we started to get the really tremendous, terabytes and petabytes of data.
What are those patterns that were important to be identified?
How new users turned into active users, and how active users turned into deactivated users. We also want to understand how non-users turned into new users. And we really tried to understand all the different variables. Did you put a profile picture up or not? When you joined, did you join a dense network of friends or did you join a loosely collected network of friends? If users are coming back regularly, then we know we're building a good product.
Was the data you were looking for also the kind of thing that we use for targeted advertising? Were you looking at what people were buying or what products they were using, that sort of thing?
Yeah, what users click through and things like that.
Today, even with the most advanced advertising systems that exist, they only have estimates of what someone's gender might be, or what someone's age might be, or what they might be interested in. But on Facebook, we know exactly what gender someone is, and exactly how old they are, and exactly what they're interested in.
At a presentation to advertisers in 2007, Mark Zuckerberg pitched the benefits of Facebook's vast database.
When you run ads on Facebook, you're also going to learn a lot about the audience that you're reaching. And a lot of this you're going to be able to do directly through the messages that you send to them and the content that they upload. But the rest we're going to do by aggregating non-personally identifiable information about the users that you're reaching.
Facebook's lifeblood and the heart of its revenue model is the accumulation of data its users volunteer, including their interests or likes. Advertisers who help boost Facebook's revenue to an estimated $1.4 billion in 2010 buy access to that goldmine of anonymous demographic information, enabling them to reach a remarkably specific and well-targeted audience. Let's say, for example, you're a publisher. You're looking to launch the next big novel. You just click on the ad page if you want to target men on Facebook between the ages of 35 and 50. There are more than 22 million of them. You want to narrow it down even more?
Okay, how about men who like to read, are single, college educated, and live in New York? So with just a few clicks, you have sent an ad to 3,567 people who might actually buy your book.
Facebook says it never divulges personal information, just anonymous demographic data. Recently, it was uncovered that third-party developers of some of its applications had been selling personal user data to advertisers. Facebook says it quickly corrected the breach, but this latest snafu illustrates how profiting from personal information and guaranteeing it will never be shared can come into conflict.
Do I have any right to privacy when I sign on with a service like Facebook?
Facebook makes up those terms, and it's offered on a take-it-or-leave-it basis. If you don't accept it, you're not on Facebook.
And although some do in fact decide to leave it,
let's go.
Facebook's data mining shows
A lot of people had deactivated more than once, but they almost always came back.
hundreds of thousands of people sign up for Facebook every day, from Tokyo to Tehran to Pennsylvania Avenue. Inside the White House when the Facebook obsession returns.
Change has come to America.
Some people call Obama's election the Facebook election.
Perhaps nothing has transformed politics in the last generation like social media, and nothing has transformed social media as much as Facebook.
There were a group of students who had decided to form an organization called Students for Barack Obama. And they used this thing called Facebook. And so they invited me to a rally at George Mason University.
Facebook allowed those many young people who were so excited about Obama's campaign to find each other and to campaign effectively.
I asked my staff, I said, how many folks do you expect are going to be there? And they said, well, maybe 100. And we walk in to this building, and 3,500 students are there. My goodness!
Even before Barack Obama formally declared his presidential aspirations, he seized upon the promise and power of Facebook by going directly to its source, where he met with one of Mark Zuckerberg's co-founders, Chris Hughes.
Barack Obama and his, at that time, Senate staff came to Facebook and came to me wanting to set up a presence on Facebook. I ended up making the decision to take a leave from Facebook and go and work for Obama right after he announced in February of 2007.
I'm putting it around my neighborhood.
By the end, we had over 250,000 events organized, 35,000 grassroots groups, and we'd raised over $500 million online, not to count the money that came in offline. And so that was really the engine that powered the campaign and helped us eventually win the presidency.
The lesson was not forgotten once President Obama arrived at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. With well over 17 million fans, his Facebook page is one of the most popular on the site. The White House has its own page, and for the first time in history, it has a team dedicated to social media. We went behind the scenes to see how they operate.
Right now, I'm keeping an eye on a live Facebook chat.
On this day, the new media team produces an interview with White House cyber czar Howard Schmidt, streaming live on the White House Facebook application. Questions come in at a furious pace.
What steps will the federal government take to facilitate the hiring of new cybersecurity and privacy professionals?
Well, we have this initiative called the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education.
The White House social media team is headed by Macon Phillips, who reports directly to the president.
When you logged on the first White House computer, were you able automatically to log on to Facebook?
No, it was blocked.
So you were really carving out new space then.
I was doing a lot of things I never thought I'd be doing. Trying to make sure our online programs were consistent with laws that had been written and drafted long before the social networks had been developed.
Does this give the White House then another window into America?
It is a giant group of people, and we can get tons of feedback. One of the things that's interesting is when we post something, we're able to see how many people like it. People have all sorts of motivations. Some of those motivations are to protest something. Some of them are to send notes to the president. And some of them are to talk with one another. And that's a great way for us to make sure that we're actually taking that back into the policymaking process.
Former President George Bush, who missed the Facebook movement while in office, did climb aboard after he left.
The 43rd President of the United States is here with us.
Bush, promoting his book about his presidential legacy, came to Facebook's headquarters to get the message out.
I've got over 600,000 friends on my Facebook page.
And it's not just U.S. politicians joining in on the Facebook obsession. One of the first people Britain's Prime Minister David Cameron met with when he arrived at 10 Downing Street was Facebook founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg. They followed up their conversation about how Facebook could help England's massive debt crisis with a live web chat.
Well, thank you very much for getting Facebook involved in this project. I'm really excited about it.
We're really delighted to be in this partnership with you guys in order to harness the energy and the ideas that Facebook users have in order to help the UK public save money.
Facebook is having a big political impact in many countries.
Author David Kirkpatrick has chronicled Facebook's growing influence throughout the world.
The public is empowered in a way they never were before. When Ahmadinejad was declared the winner of the presidential campaign in Iran, we saw people going into the streets demonstrating in the hundreds of thousands. And Facebook and Twitter were the primary tools they were using to communicate with each other. Even to this day, Mousavi, who is the defeated candidate, primarily communicates with his followers over Facebook.
About 70% of Facebook users are outside the U.S., in over 170 countries and territories.
At some point, are we going to look at this organization, look at Facebook, and think it's too big?
I would absolutely predict that governments are going to be coming down on Facebook and seeking to tell it how to operate, telling it what it can and can't do. And the test of Facebook's long-term success and image is going to be how well they handle those governments.
One of the most challenging tests will be Facebook's attempt to enter China, a country fraught with political hurdles, including internet censorship and its own social networks. Zuckerberg is well aware of the obstacles and is looking to conquer them head-on.
It's kind of a personal challenge this year. I'm just taking an hour a day and I'm learning Chinese, trying to understand the language, the culture, the mindset. How can you connect the whole world if you leave out 1.6 billion people?
And so Mark Zuckerberg continues his march across the globe. But will his past collide with Facebook's future? When we return, the conclusion of the Facebook obsession. At the foot of the Sangre de Cristo Mountain sits the adobe-like village of Taos, New Mexico. Steeped in history, dating back to the 1600s, the town also offers a peek into the future. As the new police chief in town, Rick Anglada came armed with a new way to fight crime: Facebook.
By way of Facebook, you can actually hit, over 1,000 people in one click of a button.
On this day, his detective, Nick Alt, is on the trail of Evelyn Franco, wanted for a parole violation following a conviction for writing bad checks. Chief Anglada uncovers a lead on Facebook.
We discovered that she is actually going by a name on Facebook of Evelyn Gutierrez. She posted a comment here on this other woman's page. She says, "Okay, are we drinking at work today?" According to her page, she works for Tri-County.
Okay.
Following the new lead, Detective Alt drives across town to the Tri-County Social Services Center, hoping to get one step closer to the parole violator.
Nick Alt with the Taos Police Department.
Alt questions Franco's Facebook friend. She says the two went to the same high school, but had not seen each other recently. Anglada soon finds out why. The woman has moved to Los Angeles.
Is there any indication she's coming back to Taos?
She is coming for a high school reunion in August.
And you learned that from Facebook?
Through Facebook, yes.
So you'll be waiting for her?
We will be.
All right, Captain, I pulled this information off of Facebook.
Taos is not alone. An increasing number of police departments are using Facebook to solve crimes. And over 700 departments around the world now have their own Facebook page. The reach and impact of the world's most popular social network just keeps growing. Today, more than 1 million businesses are on Facebook, including more than half of the Fortune 500. It's all about going where the customers are.
They don't go on a brand's website every day, but they go on their Facebook page every day.
Christian McMahon heads the Dos Equis beer marketing team.
That level of two-way conversation and engagement with consumers, you don't get in any other medium as well as you get with Facebook.
With over 2,000 employees worldwide and 2 massive compounds at its Palo Alto headquarters, Mark Zuckerberg's creation has brought him a net worth of over $6 billion. And though Zuckerberg has come a long way from that Harvard dorm room, he still can't escape some of the episodes of his past. In 2010, embarrassing instant messages surfaced, allegedly written by Zuckerberg while he was in college. Referring to the first few thousand Facebook users, if you ever need information about anyone at Harvard, I have over 4,000 emails, pictures, addresses. People just submitted it. I don't know why. They trust me. Dumb. For some, the IMs confirmed their worst suspicions about Zuckerberg's views on user privacy.
Those emails back in college, they stick to you now, whether you like it or not. And
Kara Swisher, a technology columnist for the Wall Street Journal, interviewed a visibly sweating Zuckerberg in what became infamously known as his Richard Nixon moment.
You know, some of the things that people accuse me of are true, some of them aren't. I think a lot of it has been pretty well documented.
Right.
You know, the
Would you like to say which ones are true?
You know, I mean, I think I actually don't even know, looking back. You know, the IMs are printed, it's tough for me to tell.
Right.
But I mean, there's face smash, right? I mean, there are some IMs that have been printed. There are pranks, there's blogs.
Why was he so uncomfortable?
I think it was some sort of panic attack. The story of Mark Zuckerberg is he's incredibly socially awkward, and he runs the biggest social networking site in the world.
Sometimes people really question whether he has the maturity to be the leader that Facebook needs. He doesn't actually like the public-facing role, which is really part of what he has to learn to like, or else he has to relinquish it to someone else.
There's also the question of whether Facebook fatigue could begin to set in.
You don't want to know all these things about your friends. Like, I'm so glad you bought a bike, but please leave me alone. I don't care. It's like the phone is constantly ringing, and you have to keep picking it up.
Facebook has altered the meaning of friendship, and maybe not necessarily in the best possible way. You might argue that it's kind of degraded the notion of friendship.
But the fact that even some of Zuckerberg's harshest critics can't resist it shows the power of the Facebook obsession.
Are all of you on Facebook?
Yes. Yeah.
Why?
It would be the ultimate insult if we couldn't even actually partake in the benefits of the idea that we helped spawn.
We did wait a while to join. 4 years.
It's going to get harder and harder for individuals to say that they don't want to be part of it. It's connected people in all sorts of ways that they could not have anticipated. But we have to wrestle with the harm it produces.
The biggest transition that'll take place in the next couple years is this move from Facebook just being a destination site to being the technology that powers the social web in general.
This is becoming infrastructure for a lot of the planet. As we do move the internet onto cell phones and Facebook goes with it, Mark Zuckerberg sees a Facebook in the future that's completely unlike the one that you and I operate in today.
The Facebook story is a great example of how if you're building a product that people love, you can make a lot of mistakes.